Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into MB12, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news, there's strong criticism from the F&M on the government's mortgage relief plan. More armed robberies occurring in the capital. How transnational organized crime affects the Bahamas. Plus, the Golden Knights continue their whirlwind tour of the island. We've got those stories and so much more coming up. I'm Paige McCartney, and MB12 starts right now. Welcome once again to MB12. It's been 2 days since the Progressive Liberal Party revealed its mortgage relief plan in the House of Assembly. Today, former chairman of the Bahamas Mortgage Corporation, Dr. Duane Sands, knocking that plan, which is markedly different from the first plan the PLP put forward in April as a classic case of bait and switch. Our Jasmine Bonamy reports.
Dr. Duane Sands completely criticized the PLP's mortgage relief plan, calling it a bait and switch that will time voters.
Leading up to the general election of 2012, the general public, the Bahamian public, who had suffered through probably the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, had been led to believe that there was real hope on the way for families struggling with, these very difficult mortgage payments. I think the public genuinely hoped that some real relief was on the way.
Dr. Sands called the plan a pie-in-the-sky idea that at best will offer only temporary relief to homeowners in desperate need of help. Minister of State for Finance Michael Halkitis recently revealed in the House of Assembly that under the plan, an estimated 1,100 homeowners can qualify. He also said that the Christie administration only plans to spend a maximum of $7,500 for each applicant needing help with an outstanding loan. Another key component of the plan includes the fact that a portion of the mortgage, which will be determined by the banks, would be interest-free for a period of 3 years. But according to Dr. Sands, the $10 million cap in aid won't even come close to solving the delinquencies at the mortgage corporation. Furthermore, he says it will only benefit a small percentage of people who actually need help.
The reality is that the overwhelming majority of Bahamians, many of whom voted for the Progressive Liberal Party on the basis that they would get some relief, they will find ain't nothing in this for them. Nothing. This is bait and switch. This is the big switcheroo. This is not really for them. So $10 million now, a drop in the bucket relative to, what ordinary Bahamians are suffering or reeling from, which will ultimately benefit a select group of individuals. This is a typical PLP approach.
After a different version of the plan was first introduced, rating agency Moodys claimed the relevant aid for the entire country would cost at least $250 million. While he agreed with Moodys' interpretation of the original plan, Dr. Sands did say there is at least one positive about the new plan.
It is a plan that does provide assistance to a small number of Bahamians, and for that we must be grateful. But if I sell a bill of goods, or if I say to a group of people, elect me and I am going to provide you with relief, and then I turn around and produce a plan that has nothing in it for me, even though I may have voted for you on that basis, I think yet again the public is going to have buyer's remorse.
Meantime, Halkitis says the mortgage relief plan is expected to be in place by the first week of September and remain open to applicants for at least 6 months. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Bonamy.
Well, Minister of State for Finance Michael Halkitis today confirmed that Wall Street credit ratings agency Moodys is tentatively scheduled to visit the Bahamas in October to begin discussions with the government about its financial plans, including its campaign to regain majority control of the Bahamas telecommunications company. Moodys recently gave the Bahamas and BTC parent company Cable and Wireless Communications a double credit negative assessment. BTC and CWC are supposed to discuss the possible transfer of controlling interests of BTC sometime this month. In its report, Moodys called the government's proposed buyout negotiations an erratic approach to its participation in the telecom sector, and that the purchase penalty fees and potential litigation costs would place the country's economy in jeopardy at a time when its finances are deteriorating. Shortly after the report was released, Halkitis called the damning assessment an uninformed opinion and said the government was concerned that the opinions being expressed are not informed by facts. Halkitis said the government wanted to discuss its policies with the analyst who wrote the report, who he claimed recently joined Moodys and has not previously covered the Bahamas. Halkitis confirmed that they have since spoken, and he says he's looking forward to sharing details about the government's fiscal plans. Well, over the past 5 days, 40 Bahamian government officials and representatives from the United States Northern Command met to examine how transnational organized crime poses threats to the security of the Bahamas and the region. Christina McNeil has more on the way forward.
Transnational organized crime continues to be one of the biggest threats to human security around the world and here in the Bahamas. Today, the government and the Center for Hemispheric Defense Studies formed a critical partnership to fight organized crime in the region. At the closing ceremony and graduation of the 5-day course, NORTHCOM Director of Strategy, Policy and Plans, Major General Francis Mahone, explained that transnational criminal organizations are a common threat in the hemisphere. For the most part, he says criminal entrepreneurs deal in narcotics, illegal trafficking, and weapons smuggling. Despite those threats, Mahone says the Bahamas can play a major role in the fight against organized crime.
But we all know that as competition between them increases, the TCOs have branched out into other violent crimes, in kidnapping, extortion. Their activities destabilize our society, threaten the lives of our people, and undermine the authority of local governance.
State Minister for National Security Keith Bell says organized crime is a multifaceted phenomenon, impeding the social, economic, political, and cultural development of societies worldwide. Here in the Bahamas, he says government has ratified the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime and its supplementary protocols relating to firearms trafficking, human trafficking, and migrant smuggling. But the key to combating those crimes begins with gathering intelligence on the ground. To that end, Bell says the establishment of a national intelligence agency is helping to gather intelligence critical to fighting crime.
When you're talking about crime prevention, when you're talking about intelligence-led policing, when you talk about proactive policing, we're not just about using these terminologies loosely, we're talking about action. And in order for you to do that, when you're dealing with crime, whether it's local domestic crime or international crime, it has to be intelligence-driven. The course today that is being offered dealt with an intelligence-led perspective, and that is what is critical.
The Bahamas faces major threats, including the smuggling of firearms, drugs, and humans, but also poaching, which threatens the country's natural resources. Earlier this week, Minister of National Security Dr. Bernard Nottage revealed that government will be engaged in discussions with the government of the Dominican Republic to combat poaching in Bahamian waters. Bell says that is just one element in a holistic approach to fighting organized crime.
We are about to engage in discussions, which means that the door is open. And we are seeking in a proactive way to deal with these types of activities in our jurisdiction, because all of these crimes are interconnected. You cannot avoid that. And so the thing is that it is important that as governments, as countries, as law enforcement agents, we come together. It is critical that we share information, that we network, and that is precisely what, when the minister started to talk about poaching and that sort of a thing, that's what he's really speaking about.
Major General Mahone says he is pleased with the outcome of the conference and the partnership established between NORTHCOM and the Bahamas.
At NORTHCOM, we're responsible for disaster response inside the United States. And we often say you don't want to be trading business cards for the first time with your partners at the disaster site. You want to have arrived at the site knowing who's coming and knowing what they're capable of doing and what they're bringing and knowing how they operate and understanding them, so that you move forward in a rehearsed manner and it really becomes the execution of something you've done before. Came here for a common purpose, and I hope we depart as partners, committed to working together to defeat the TCO threat in our region and to build resilient communities in our nations.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Christina McNeil.
Well, a prison convoy was temporarily delayed today after a bus carrying about 25 prisoners from Central Police Station was hit by a truck trying to beat traffic to make it over the Paradise Island entry bridge. The accident occurred at around 2 p.m. at the foot of the bridge. None of the prisoners or any of the 4 officers on board the bus were injured. Police said no prisoners escaped, and at no time was the public in any danger. The prisoners were taken to prison in a different vehicle not too long after the accident occurred.